It's been a little more than 2 weeks since Future Redeemed came out. It might seem like old news by now, you know, Zelda's coming out, that's going to be the bulk of my time, but I am a big Xenoblade fan, and even though it is a little late, I wanted to let it all soak in. I didn't want to just beat it and give you, like, a first reaction, a knee-jerk reaction. I wanted it to soak in and let this be a proper, well-digested spoiler discussion for you all. You know, it is a smaller scale. It's a DLC compared to an entire base game. So I thought, as a bonus, as an extra for you guys, I'm going to update my tier list video as well. I did a tier list, I don't even remember when that was, like last year or something, of the major characters, basically the protagonist and major antagonist of the Xenoblade trilogy. I will give you some time, a few seconds, to go back to that previous video if you have not watched it yet. That's why this is censored. 3, 2, 1, bam, there it is. We have the tier list. Unfortunately, this is made by K Jewelers right there. You can follow them. This is super well made. I love the portraits that they use. There's a lot more characters in general on this tier list, I think. But maybe I'm blind, maybe it's a bug with the website, but there's a few characters who are missing. Most notably, Sharla, one of the party members from Xenoblade 1. And it's funny because Juju's here. I did want to start with, let's go Riku. Let's go Riku. Because Riku kind of had this to be determined in my tier list video. You know, I was saying, yeah, I mean, we don't really know much about Riku yet. I feel like we were all crafting our theories, right? Oh, Riku's gonna be like the final boss of Future Redeemed, or Riku's like the true antagonist, Riku's like this god of the world. Riku is Alvis, Riku is Rex, you know, we had all these crazy theories. Turns out that Riku is really not that far from, what does he say, like a common variety Naupon? He's not that far from that. Yes, his master pawn is Melia, that's a big deal. Yes, he is the 7th founder, or at least he's implied to be. That's really cool. He doesn't really have any special powers or anything like that. He's just a hard-working Naupon. He's working the 9 to 5 every day. He's been on the grind, and I respect that. And it's made me be able to appreciate him more as a character. Like, now that I know what's going on with him, I can look at, like, more of his personality and see that he's honestly an entertaining character. He is. Like, he has some funny exchanges, but they're not, like, the Naupon tend to be very exaggerated, right? But Riku, he's like blunt. Like, he's not exaggerated, but he is blunt, and I think that makes for some pretty funny dialogue. I look at C tier, and I realize, you know, he does deserve more than C tier. I would actually think he's the best Naupon, so I guess I'd put him right there, next to Tora. You don't always need this major plot twist to justify why a character is ambiguous, right? Like, Riku, like, he was rightfully sus. Like, he was hiding a lot of things. He was just very mysterious compared to everybody else. But it wasn't for the reasons, the exaggerated reasons, as we might have thought. I don't know. I just really like what they did with him. Someone who was major and explicit in Future Redeemed was N. At least the way I saw him was like a lesser version of Jin. Because when I think about what I like about N, when I think about what he contributes to the story, it's very similar to Jin. These antagonists who eventually turn good, who used to be good, and the reason why they were ever bad is because of what happened to a loved one. But N, when you first meet him, he's kind of like a cartoony villain. Like, he'll be saying these things like, oh yeah, I'll make you realize the tragedies of having hope, and now you'll cling on to despair. You know, he'll say these things where I just kind of roll my eyes. It's just over-the-top kind of anime villain phrasing. I don't know. I never liked that. I thought it was a little too over-the-top. I thought it was too corny. When you learn about N's backstory, it's really just dumped onto you. There's nothing subtle about it. All that being said, Future Redeemed redeems a lot of that to me, because it showed more about N's character in a way that wasn't so in your face and just all at once. One of my favorite scenes of Future Redeemed, the flashback with Gondor's death. It turns out that N did not intentionally kill Gondor, but just their exchange. It's just so heartbreaking, right? Maybe not regretful of his decisions, but he just realizes the weight of them. And to have him show up for the finale and help out, I said it in the video, it was titillating. It was hype as fuck. I'ma just be real. It was sick. There's no way he's better than Jin. I don't even think he's better than Malos. But I want to push Malos and N to the top of B tier. The ordering doesn't matter too much, but I at least wanted to give him that honor. Like, I think they did wonders with N's character. If I truly cared about the ordering, I think I would make a B plus tier. I think you can take the top end of B and the bottom end of A and make that a B plus tier. I think that would make a lot more sense. But hey, we're here to talk about Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed most of all, so we're not going to care too much about that. Let's talk about two of the main party members, okay, who are already on this tier list. That's Shulk and Rex. Let's go with Shulk first, because I honestly don't have too much to say about Shulk. Shulk's going to stay right there. But do not take that as a negative thing. I know some of y'all might be a little butthurt. You'll take that as a negative thing. Shulk in Future Redeemed was like seeing a friend you haven't seen in a long time. But when you see them, it's like things have picked up right where they left off. That's how it felt. Like, my opinion of Shulk did not really change. But it was just like immediately comforting. It was immediately like, oh yeah, it's Shulk. You know, it's not like this unrecognizable guy. It's not like this guy that I've lost connection with. Like, no, it's Shulk. Like, Shulk's back. I'm back with him. You know, that's how it felt. To me, it just felt familiar, but in a good way. Okay, now we have Rex, and I'm glad everybody's filling out their Rex apology forms, because I already wanted to do this. I already wanted to put Rex higher in the A rank. I put him in B initially, because I was being considerate of everyone's opinions and this and that. If I was ranking this just purely on my opinion, Rex would have been higher, and I'm glad I finally have justification to do that with Future Redeemed, because now everybody likes Rex. Everybody loves him. Everybody thinks he's sexy. And he is! Both Shulk and Rex are sexy as frick. I've always thought that Rex was the best Xenoblade protagonist, that being Shulk, Noah, and Rex. I've always thought he was the best one in terms of actually developing as a character. Xenoblade 2 is a coming-of-age story. That's what it is. You're not supposed to like Rex all the time. Yeah, sure, you'll find him annoying sometimes. Because it's a coming-of-age story. Rex has a growth from the beginning of the game to the end. I talked about this enough already in previous videos. Some people who didn't like Rex in Xenoblade 2 might like him now in Future Redeemed. But it's not because he's this drastically different character. Don't let the haters confuse you. It's not because Rex, you know, they fixed the mistakes of his writing or, you know, this and that. No, like, Future Redeemed Rex is pretty much the same Rex. He's just more mature because he's older. Because sometimes when you write a character who is really young, and then now he's like, I don't want to say really old, but he's much older, sometimes you can write them in a way where they're kind of just two different characters. Like, for example, Mikhail, right? Young Mikhail to this Mikhail. Very different personalities, right? But with Rex, that is the same Rex. And to clarify, either way, from Mikhail to Rex, I'm not saying either of those ways is bad, okay? I'm just saying they're different approaches to how you write a character. If you actually follow the story and follow his development, Rex at the end of Xenoblade 2, he realizes his mistakes. He realizes he can't just do anything, you know? Because when he first got Pyra, I wasn't a driver before, but now I'm a driver, but I'm like now a legendary driver. It was just like this exciting thing where he has this newfound power and he thought he could do anything. But then he gets humbled. Then he gets this reality check. He gets this coming-of-age moment where he gets that reality check and he has to realize, oh, wait, no, I kind of do suck. I kind of do suck, but that's why I'm going to be better. That's why I'm going to improve. That's why I'm not going to give up, because I know that I have to be better. And you take that form of Rex who has come to those realizations, you carry that to Future Redeemed. He shows that by being strict to the kids. Like, you might have not expected that. I didn't expect that at first, but it makes sense because he's gone through realizing that he was, you know, being a kid and making those stupid mistakes, making those reckless mistakes. Yeah, he's like a little more serious. He doesn't say the salvager code, unfortunately. That was a big letdown. I'll just put that out right now. But he's still like that goofy, awkward, optimistic Rex. The scene with Glimmer when he talks about he wants to, you know, help the world and give them all smiles and all that. It took me back before that. If you look at his reaction after he meets Glimmer for the first time, he's talking to Linka, and he's like, even before they say anything, like Rex already has like a an unsure face. This is a Rex who has matured enough, just like the latter half of Xenoblade 2. He's matured enough to realize when he's effed up, to own up to it, and to immediately like seek ways to improve on it. That's why he goes to Shulk, right? He basically asks Shulk, "You got any advice?" It's like, if you didn't realize it when you were playing Xenoblade 2, well, you should realize it now with Future Redeemed, because this is just a proof of concept. Like, yes, this is the person he grew up to be. Yo, honestly, I kind of want to put Rex, like, all the way up here. Now let's get on to the Future Redeemed exclusive characters, starting out with one that's not necessarily exclusive. It's Alpha, who is just the pure machine version of Ontos. I mean, I guess just the easy answer, just to put them in C tier. I mean, Alpha is literally just a machine, right? But I think the whole mystery surrounding Alpha, obviously just the premise of bringing back Ontos, right? I think that alone is good enough to justify not being at the end of C tier, you know? And plus that final boss, whew! I didn't put the labels on, but C tier is like, you serve your purpose. You know what? I'm gonna bump up Akos. I'm bumping up Akos because, like, I don't know, him compared to everybody else, Akos was cool. I wanted more from Niall. Like, what they have with Niall, I think, is really compelling. To have this character who says, you know what, Mobius or not, like, this world sucks. Like, people suck anyway. I like that they continue to add these new perspectives. Because with Yorin and Shania, they give you the perspective of like, okay, here's someone who actually has a justified reason as to why they want the life cycles and Mobius to continue. Then you have Niall here who's like, yo, man, screw this. Screw everything. I like that. I think she's the founder of House Doyle, the most conservative house. And it just makes so much sense considering her character. Like, you really feel what she's feeling. The fact that, yeah, the world does suck. And, like, it would be nice if we could all just go away to an ideal paradise or whatever, right? It just makes so much sense for the world that they're building. And it makes for a nice foil between Niall and Matthew. Her voice actor was also excellent. After when Niall gets upset at the people coming into the city, she goes in the room. Matthew goes to confront her. And then Niall just goes on this rant. And just the voice acting, it was just so powerful. I never cried while playing Future Redeemed. I'll get that out right now. I'll explain more why later. But that was one of the moments where I was like so close. Just everything she was feeling and plus the performance from the voice actor. But the reason why I say I wanted more from Niall is that you don't really see too much of how she's like in the average day. Like, yeah, you get a few of those flashbacks. I don't know, I just feel like she has such a cool character design. Her character design has so much swagger that you would think she would have, like, more of a role. But no, it's pretty much like after you rescue her, like, the game's over. So, I think I feel similarly about, like, Ryan, Mikhail, and Niall. 3 very different characters, but I don't know, just somewhere in that area. I do like Nikol, don't get me wrong. Nikol to me is the least interesting because he is pretty much Baby Shulk, but with a deep-ass voice. With people want younger kids to be either cool or like badass or wholesome. And Nikol's like on that wholesome side where, oh, he's just so soft and he's just so innocent and all that. And yeah, that's cool. I like him, but that's just kind of it. Yeah, I don't have much to say about him. I like his relationship with Shulk. I like how healthy that is compared to how Rex and Glimmer starts out. It's a nice foil between the two. Even though he is, like, innocent, he does have those moments where he, like, instigates the situation. Not much to actually say about him because he is really, like, Baby Shulk. Unfortunately, it kind of breaks my heart to do this. To have an Aegis-related girl not be in at least A tier. I'm gonna put Glimmer in B tier, nearby Bridget. I was a little let down with the father-child dynamic. Like, I felt like they could have went a little bit more. But at the very least, we got that scene with Glimmer and Rex before you go off to the Black Mountains. One of my favorite scenes. Is really, really nice scene there. She does develop, you know, she starts off as this very difficult child who just wants to go back home. I just think because of the scope of Future Redeemed, both Nikol and Glimmer didn't get as much development as I hoped. Didn't get as much screen time, as much importance as I hoped. You know, I kind of want to end with A. I don't really know why. I think it's because I don't know where I want to place A right now. But I do know where I want to place Matthew. It's like, it's weird to put him below the other protagonists. Because the thing with Matthew is that he is such an immediately likable character. There's a few times where I thought it was a little much. When he says goodbye to N, he's like, I don't want to deal with this loser and his idiocy. And then, like, right before he reveals he has the new Makora crystal, he's like, shut the hell up! You know, like, every now and then, his, like, insistence on being that stubborn, aggressive, reckless Matthew, it does, like, take away, at least for me, a little bit from the moment. Just slightly. I do like Matthew's humor. Like, when he's getting, like, kind of snarky with Glimmer, he's not my ideal protagonist, right? Because at least with Rex, they have, like, a similar vibe of, like, that just super shonen anime protagonist, right? And I think more people will like Matthew just because Matthew's older. But at least Rex, like, he has a full game to develop, you know? Where Matthew, he is Matthew. Last but certainly not least is another A-rank character. This might seem lazy, but I'm going to put her right next to Matthew because Matthew and A complement each other so well. They complement each other so well that I was sad to see them separate at the ends. And it wasn't like this emotional send-off or anything. A just explains that she's leaving and Matthew's like, oh, okay. But it was just sad because, like, they just complement each other so well. It's just so nice, the dynamic they have, the relationship between those two, and how A just commonly just shuts down Matthew, but she loves him at heart. You're not even mad that she's putting Matthew down sometimes. Partly because Matthew kind of deserves it, and also because she's just so cool. You know what? I'll listen. I'll listen to her. You know, if she told me to stop, I stop. Now, that gets us to just the overall spoiler discussion. Starting from Chapter 1, I really loved, right off the bat, how tightly paced Future Redeemed is. At least at first. Like, Chapter 1 and 2, they blow by so fast. Like, they really want you to get to the point where you're free to explore and you have all the party members. Chapter 1 is so short, I don't even have much to say about it besides what I've already said. Chapter 2 is where it gets interesting because that's where you start to meet Shulk and Rex, right? That's where you go on the grand chase for Glimmer. And, oh, hold on. Before I forget, we just need to address Aurora's Shelf. That freaking song. The song for Aurora's Shelf is like a top 10 Xenoblade song. Maybe even like top 5. That might be a stretch. But regardless, the fact that I'm saying that for a franchise that has so many songs, so many amazing songs, when I heard Aurora's Shelf, I immediately knew, like, yo, this song is like one of the best in the franchise. It's I never get tired of it. I could listen to that song on a loop, and I would just keep bopping my head, keep swinging my hips, keep loving life the way I do when I'm walking around the Aurora's Shelf. I love that area. I love that that was the first area you got to explore. You know, like kind of like a Gower Plain, Gourmand, and all that. But Aurora's Shelf, just that song, man. That song really set you off in a nice pace. Really made you look forward to seeing this world and seeing what the plot has in store for you. Wow, I almost forgot to mention this character, Panacea. I will give Panacea this. Definitely the best member of the Charla Juju family line. I just like the fact that you had Linka and Panacea. Like, I just didn't see them coming. I love that they end up going on to be the founders of the city. And, you know, of course, they dedicate their statues. I thought that was just a nice twist. Again, like, not a huge deal. They're not super important to the story. But just having that be a mix-up, right? And really playing towards the mentor figures that Rex and Shulk are. The beginning of Chapter 3 was hype as hell. I want to say something real quick. Because we like to say, oh, you know, a lot of people hate Rex, this and that, right? But the fact is, they gave Rex this epic introduction. He comes in at this climatic moment. Not only that, he saves the day in this climatic moment. And on top of that, he says his catchphrases. You compare that to Shulk, who just kind of shows up. I don't know, man. I think, if you look at the reactions too from the Future Redeem trailers or just the playthroughs, you'll see a lot of love for Rex. So basically what I'm saying is that, like, the hate for Rex has been overblown, just like the whole hate for Xenoblade 2. And I think Monolith Soft knew that, because otherwise, why would they do that? You don't have a character come in to save the day with their cheesy-ass catchphrases if you knew they were a hated character. You know what I mean? Especially in Japan, right? Japan, clearly popular there because Xenoblade 2 is a very Japanese game. After that, though, was a really nice sequence of cutscenes, because you get the scene between Rex and Linka, where Rex is like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you have Shulk and Nikol bonding, which is very nice. And in that scene, Riku just pops up. Like, that's why Riku bumped up. Like, it's very self-aware. They know that you think that Riku is sus, so they just have him pop up out of nowhere. They're really playing with the players' expectations and their predictions and all that. I just like the fun they have with Riku's character. But then after that, you get, in my opinion, like the best scene with Nikol, where he's talking about to Glimmer, like he's talking about he got bullied, but like they're all gone now, and he's wondering like how someone so shy and weak like himself, out of everybody, like he's the one who survived. Like that scene hit me. That's probably my favorite scene between these two characters. I'm really glad they did not try to imply some romance. I'm sure people are shipping them, whatever, but yes, you get to Colony 9, but I love how it builds, because you start going up that hill, Tephra Hill. If you're a Xenoblade 1 fan, you'll recognize the surroundings, you'll recognize the music. Wait a second, are we? Oh my god, it is! It's just this awesome moment. Great fan service. Wish we had that for Xenoblade 2, but that's fine. And I like all the references there and the side quests, like the guy who lost his wedding ring, the ether. Oh, dude, that's the best reference in the whole expansion. Rex says something that starts with a sentence. He says, to me, yada yada yada. And Shulk just chuckles to himself. To me. Good times. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. I also want to shout out the city survivors. I just thought that made for a compelling mechanic. You want to go out, you want to find those survivors of the city. You don't go to the original city, but you are accustomed to the city and the civilians and what their culture is like, how they help the world. So you want to go find the survivors, right? You want to go help them out. And seeing them all come together in Colony 9 and contribute to the community mechanic, which is much better in this game, it was great. Like, I want this kind of mechanic. I just want that feeling to prevail throughout each Xenoblade game. Like, I want there to be a similar thing where you go to a town. It doesn't have to be just this one town, right? It could be any town, and you just feel this camaraderie between everybody. Also, shout out to, I forget, was it Saomi? I'm sorry if it's not her, but there's basically this duo who's kind of like Zeke and Pandoria. They get on these crazy adventures. And I think she even says she was inspired by Zeke. I think she says that. I could be making that up, but I thought she said she was inspired by the tales of Zeke's adventures, which Rex knows is like over-exaggerated. And Linka knows that too, of course. But that was great. Like, that's the kind of things I want. Honestly, they did a good job with the base game. So, it's just that they didn't have the community mechanic in that. I don't know. I was thinking, it slaps, man. This slaps. I guess it's fitting that N shows up, because Chapter 3 is this sudden lore drop. Shulk recognizes A, and then Rex just walks in, and then just lore all over the place. About A and Alpha and the Ontos, Numa, Logos, Trinity process. It's crazy. They just dropped out that lore. It's not as bad as the Homecoming, right? It's not as long as that, of course, but it just came out of nowhere. But even just the confrontation with Alpha, it just feels so serious. The tension between Matthew wanting to trust Niall/Alpha and everybody else trying to tell Matthew to, like, yo, don't. It was just so palpable. And that boss was pretty hard. At least if you fight it at the level I was. I think I was a tad under-leveled. But then you get the moment, your Glimmer and Nikol versus Shulk and Rex. And I will say, as cool as this moment was, I thought it was a little BS that Glimmer and Nikol won. And having that take place on the cliff from Xenoblade 2, and also that's where an Affinity scene takes place, my favorite Affinity scene, it's just this nice moment, because they really do foreshadow Shulk and Rex's death around this part of the game. Shulk and Rex even say, like, yeah, I don't want to see a child dying before their parent. Like, even if it cost me my life, I don't want to see that. Like, they really, the Affinity scene was the way I want that kind of foreshadowing to happen. I thought it was fantastic, but that moment was a little on the nose. I don't think they need to do that. Then you go to the Black Mountains. Excellent area. Like, one of my favorite areas. That music, too, dude. It's too bad that the Black Mountains has, like, these two parts where you don't have to, but most people will have to go through these enemy gauntlets, the territories. And that latter one was so obnoxious. That was the worst part of Future Redeemed. That enemy territory. I didn't realize, I'll admit, that there is actually a vines on the left side of that territory. I didn't realize that. I hope you did realize that, because otherwise it is just a bitch. I hated that. I hated that so much. That's when you beat N, you get to that flashback, which I already complimented. One of the best scenes, not just of the DLC, of just the entire Xenoblade 3 product. That flashback. The music in that scene, too. Oof. You get to the origin memory place. For better or worse, the conversation about this is mainly surrounding Xenosaga. At least in the community, right? I mean, I thought it was sick just because it was Klaus's worlds. And being able to see that, seeing the world tree, right? I thought that was just cool by itself. But, of course, when you have all these references, if you know Xenosaga, it's, like, very clear, right? I've already said my piece about this in a video. If you want my opinion on it, you should check out that video, okay? Future Redeemed for the fans, for the ages. Check it out. But what I will say is that if there is a Xenosaga Trilogy remaster, I'll be on it, okay? I'm on it. I'm on it. Just the ending was tremendous. Tremendous ending. But if you watch my reaction, on my Twitch stream, my Twitch collections, I was like, yeah, there's a little too much, like, ambiguity. I said in the video as well. Like, there's just too much, like, as cool as Future Redeemed was, as much justice as it did for the franchise, to me, it still feels slightly inconsequential. Like, if Future Redeemed didn't exist, I wouldn't feel like something is missing. It didn't hit me as hard as Torna, because Torna was very much consequential. You had a whole continent and people just straight up dying. There's just so much more in relation to that main story. Xenoblade 3 on its own, just the base game, is just completely fine. Like, I don't necessarily think you're missing out if you don't play Future Redeemed, unless you've played every Xenoblade game. Whereas with Torna, I feel like you are missing out if you have played Xenoblade 2, because just what it adds to Xenoblade 2 is so much. So that, coupled with the fact that I know at the end of Xenoblade 3, everything rewinds, those two things put together, it just felt like, why would I get emotional? That's why I didn't cry. I didn't cry when Shulk and Rex sacrificed themselves. I feel like in any other context I would. But in the context of Xenoblade 3, the context of knowing, oh, it's fine anyway. They're not actually dead. They're coming back. The whole Avatar thing, that was a little sloppy. They could have explained that so easily, I felt like, but the way they conveyed it was, like, weird. It just felt so sudden and kind of confusing. It just took me out of that moment the first time I experienced it. But upon reflection, I just thought that was just a beautiful departure, temporary departure for Shulk and Rex. Just the whole ending in general. I can't understate just how hype. Just pure hype. And then that's where two of Matthew's iconic lines come in. I'm not talking about the beans. I'm talking about, maybe it'll even be you. Bro. I love that line because it's so cheesy, but it makes so much sense considering Matthew's character. Like, he would say that. He would say some head-ass thing like that. And then, his final line, just Matthew Van Damme is out of here. Like, him finally saying Van Damme. It just felt like, oh, yes. And then the song in the credits. I can't listen to that song without getting emotional. I still... Here's the thing. I still prefer Xenoblade 3 base game, that ending theme. And I still prefer Xenoblade 3 base game. I've been seeing some of y'all Xenoblade fans get a little too excited. Get a little too excited about all this fan service and all these references. And that's great. I'm happy for you. Just because you got the fan service doesn't mean it's a better game. Xenoblade 3 was definitely the better game. I do find like more flaws with it now where, you know, the boss battles, for example, I've been already on about. But also like the pacing at times. Stuff like that. But that story affected me way more than Future Redeemed. I'll just be honest. I appreciate the fan service. I appreciate, you know, it all tying together. But the way Xenoblade 3 base game does it, I felt like it was this perfect medium where you feel really rewarded for being a longtime fan, but you still feel like you're experiencing something new. You still feel like Monolith Soft isn't just relying on the older characters, the older lore. You still feel like it's building on that, but it's doing it in a way that's fresh, and it's still welcoming to new players. Those side quests, I know a lot of people only play JRPGs for the main story, but those side quests in Xenoblade 3 were top tier content. 10 out of freaking 10, man. Just went far and beyond. The side quests in Xenoblade 3 were just as important as the main story, if you were to ask me. Those side quests were incredible. So for me, yes. Xenoblade 3 base game. Enjoyed that, honestly, a lot more than Future Redeemed. But I still love Future Redeemed because it knows exactly what it is. It's not trying to be anything else. It knows it's for the fans. You can't ask for a better DLC. You really can't. You really can't. Let me just relook at this tier list one more time. Do some quick adjustments. This is just like gut reaction stuff here. This is why I don't want to think about this too much. It's just too hard of a decision. You know what? I'll just stop. I quit. All I know is that I would probably do a B+. But for now, just know that Future Redeemed was awesome. Hope you had an awesome time with it if you played it. I'll see you whenever Xenoblade or Xenosaga or Xenogears pops up again. I'll see you for Batten Kaitos. Forget Xeno. I'll see you for Batten Kaitos. Let's do it.